What's going on, family? My name is Roundtree. For those who may not know, your president and founder of We Management Services, your president and co-founder of Easy Funding, your author of the book Credit is King. If you do not have this book, make sure you go out, pick it up. It is now also on audible.com, on iTunes. Make sure you go out and support and get the Audible version of the book as well. Credit mastery instructor at the J. Morrison Academy. TEDx speaker. I was fortunate enough to speak at TEDx in Buckhead, Atlanta, Georgia this past summer. So I'm extremely honored and humbled that I got a chance to expand my platform to be able to speak and educate people on the TEDx platform. What else? Founding member and partner, Tulsa Real Estate Fund, real estate investor, real estate coach, entrepreneur. A couple days ago, a couple of my coaching clients called me their life coach. So if we want to throw that in the mix. But more importantly, this FICO Friday is all about the people. I try to make sure no matter where I am in the country, no matter what I have going on, unless it's a previous engagement or I'm on a plane, I want to make sure every single Friday I come and give back. This is my way of giving back to the people. We spend an hour every single Friday breaking down and talking about various topics, everything from credit to business to entrepreneurship to real estate investing, just overall strategies, business funding, business credit, tax strategies, but even just talking about, inspiring. One of the things that I'm always constantly sharing with people, or that I get as far as the feedback I get from individuals, is that we live in a world full of negativity. And it's really important that, we use our platforms to inspire one another. So no matter if you got one follower, 100, 1,000, or 1,000,000, use your platforms to inspire others, because you never know what someone is directly or indirectly dealing with. And so we want to make sure that we're always trying to positively impact someone, because we never know that one gem that we share with them, how it could positively impact them and get their day jump started, or their week, or their month. I actually put a post out, I think it was a day or two ago, talking about, as entrepreneurs and business owners, we have to start celebrating our own success sometimes. Not in a braggadocious way, not in a, I'm in my bag and I'm trying to, stunt type of situation, but, just understanding that entrepreneurship is a lonely road. Entrepreneurship is extremely and brutally hard. It's tough. A lot of times we just see the glitz and the glamour of entrepreneurship. They don't tell us the sleepless nights, the loss of friends. Your family members gonna think you weird because they think you're trying to sell them on something that they probably need anyway. You're no longer trading time for dollars. See, that's the other thing that a lot of people, when they're freshly stepping into entrepreneurship, they may not know. We've been conditioned to trade time for dollars, meaning you work 8 hours a day, you get paid 10, 20, 30, 50, $100 an hour, whatever that company desires to pay you. But as an entrepreneur, and I get it, it's not for everyone, but as an entrepreneur, you could work 100 hours and don't see a dime back. They say the average entrepreneur has to work 10,000 hours before they see a profit. So when individuals come to me and they're saying, man, I'm trying to get my business off the ground, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but I'm not getting anywhere. And I'm like, how long have you been, working on your business? Oh, it's been 2 weeks. Come back to me in about 6 months to a year, because in 2 weeks, you haven't even figured out whether you like it or not. 2 weeks is not even long enough to sharpen your axe within your craft. 2 weeks isn't even long enough to put together an effective marketing campaign, or to see if that marketing campaign was even effective. It takes an average of 90 days to see a return on any marketing campaign. So just understanding that entrepreneurship is a very lonely path, or it definitely could be a lonely path. And just understanding that, because we see more failures than wins, and especially in the beginning, which I think the failures are vitally important, because they're learning lessons, as I call it, paid tuition. we need to we need to go through those early. But then when we do have a win, we need to celebrate those, even if it's a milestone win, you know. And Facebook, I know this is the first time you guys got to hear me do my FICO Fridays live, but you know, I always equate business like the game of baseball, you know, or just, you know, looking at success and failure like baseball. Think about it. You can you can hit in baseball, a good batting average, I think they say is about 300. I'm not an avid baseball fan, so please don't come and attack me. But you can hit the ball 3 times out of 10 and make millions and millions of dollars in baseball. And because we've been so conditioned to think you always got to do 60, 70, 80, 90% success rate, that's not always true, you know. So in business, you can win 10, 20, 30% of the time, or get a 10, 20, 30% profit margin, and you're winning. And so we have to kind of change our mindset and our paradigm of how we think of what a win is. Or you can have someone who's never ever hit a home run, but they're consistently always getting to first base, consistently always getting to second base, consistently bunting the bat to make sure that one of their teammates can be able to run and come home. And so understanding that, you have people in baseball who's never ever hit a home run but still making tens of millions of dollars a year. That's the exact same thing of how entrepreneurship is. It's about also celebrating the milestone wins. Look, not everybody in entrepreneurship is going to make $100,000 a year. Not everybody in entrepreneurship is going to make $1 million a year, or multiple millions of dollars a year, or create multiple multi-million dollar businesses. But some may get in just because they're trying to make an extra $5,000 a month for their family. Some may get in because they're just trying to make an extra $1,000 a month for their family. And if that's the case, celebrate those wins. So I always have to tell a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, don't ever feel ashamed for celebrating your success, especially if you're doing it tastefully. Because who else is going to celebrate you like you? You know, we deal with negative individuals every single day, whether it's at our place of employment, whether it's, you know, our family members, whether some of you may be dealing with negative spouses, you know, and just understanding that we have to always celebrate our wins, and what better for us to be able to kind of keep our engine going, but us to celebrate us. And again, as long as it's within class and it's tasteful and all of that good stuff, you know, I'm all about us as entrepreneurs, definitely saluting ourselves in these trying times, because again, entrepreneurship is extremely difficult. And so with that being said, no special guest today. We're definitely going to just go right into the topic. Been getting a lot of questions, a lot of requests. It actually is something that kind of springboarded off of last week's FICO Friday with our guest Tommy Say. I would say that was probably one of our most inspiring FICO Fridays. Every single guest I have on, I would like to say, has been inspiring. They inspire me in more ways than one, directly and indirectly. And so hopefully those guests also do the same for you all. But one of the things that Tommy talked about last week is that in business, and I deal with this a lot, and even before he brought this up, I feel this question a lot. A lot of business owners or people just in the realm of dealing with credit, sometimes you get individuals who are always, looking to try to cut corners, trying to figure out a cheat code to success. And I always tell people the cheat code to success is working hard. You know, the cheat code to success is going through the failures. The cheat code to success is having a burning desire and being ambitious. That's the cheat code to success. But from a business and funding standpoint, one of the things that I always commonly get with people who are trying to do is trying to figure out, okay, how do I not use my personal credit? Or if my personal credit is horrible, I don't want to use it. So let me go and try the CPN thing. And for those who do not know, you know, today's topic is the truth about CPNs. So we're going to go into, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever questions you guys have about them and whatnot. And so for those who don't know what a CPN number is, a credit privacy number essentially, in layman's terms, it's a secondary number to your social security number. Now, King Mark, what's going on? Rashad, peace, what's going on, King Rashad? Let me say what's up to a couple people on here on Facebook. I don't get to hop on Facebook often and go live. Darren, what's going on? Richard, peace. Chan, Cole, peace, what's going on? Icarice, LeVay, my mother-in-law, what's going on? So all these, so with a CPN, essentially a credit privacy number, it's a secondary number that people use in lieu of their social security number. Now, I do want to put out a disclaimer. A CPN number is not illegal, because people ask me all the time. I've had people call me and they're whispering on the phone, hey, do you guys do CPN numbers and all of that stuff? But a CPN number is not illegal. And so essentially, CPN numbers were used for various different reasons. A couple of them were, one, people who were going into a witness protection program. They needed to be able to conceal their identity. They were able to get a credit privacy number, and it's merely just for credit-related purposes, meaning you need to get a cell phone or something like that. People who are high net worth individuals or extremely wealthy celebrities, a lot of times will get CPNs because they want to be able to conceal their identity. You know, can you imagine being, you know, Hove, Sean Carter, aka Jay-Z, and you have a Sprint account and you got a bunch of people at Sprint looking up your account? So someone of his stature may have a CPN because they don't want people trying to get access to his information. You know, and so you have at times Secret Servicemen, people who have extremely high security clearances. I've read that may have had CPNs, again, to protect themselves in their identity. So that's what the purpose of what CPNs were put in place for. Now, over the years, and CPNs have been around for a very, very, very long time. I've actually met individuals who's had a CPN for a better part of 25 plus years because of some things that's transpired in their life, and they needed to be able to evacuate a particular situation that was going on. So they've been able to successfully live with their CPN. Now, with that being said, over the years, and this is like with anything in life, and this happens a lot in the world of finance, credit, banking, you have individuals that get crafty or assume that they're getting crafty and trying to figure out ways to get over on the system. And so over the years, CPNs have been used in a malicious way. What do I mean by that? So people would get a CPN, a secondary number, so that way they can conceal their identity, go out, get credit, build up, get loans from banks, get credit cards, buy vehicles, and they have no intention on ever paying the banks back, paying the finance company, so forth and so on. And so over the years, CPNs have gotten a bad rap because of the the amount of fraud that has taken place utilizing CPNs. And now, if you go on the internet, it's almost kind of this whole subculture of individuals taking advantage of people who are almost kind of looking for, in layman's terms, some people may be looking at it as a lifeline. Like, you know what, my credit is so bad, I just need to be able to start over. And I get it. We've definitely all been there. Like have always been sharing my story. I moved to Las Vegas. I borrowed $500. My credit was in the 400s, and I couldn't borrow a dime from anybody. Well, for one, I didn't ask anybody. But more importantly, I just felt like it was the end of the world until I started educating myself on credit and teaching myself the importance of it and why I wanted to fix it, because I was always ambitious. So going without money was never ever going to be my issue, because if I had to go in, we don't have grass in Vegas, but if I had to go in rake leaves in a winter or a fall or whatever I had to do, I would have figured out a way to make some money legally and ethically. I want to just put out that disclaimer. And so So CPNs have been kind of people lifeline of a second chance. And again, I get it. But then again, because of the whole subculture of now they're saying, you know what, come and get this CPN. We're going to attach it to a company. We're going to help you get some money from the banks. And if you don't pay them back, oh well, you don't have to. And I want to tell people it does not work like that. First of all, those days are long gone. Now, just to kind of go backwards a little bit, CPNs now have been used for people who get them to try to establish credit primarily, buying vehicles, trying to open up bank accounts and different things like that. And I always tell people that for what you're going to spend to invest in trying to build up your CPN, because when you get the number, essentially it's going to be blank. And then what you have to do is, just like you would attempt to rebuild your personal credit, you have to build up that CPN's credit profile. So on paper, it looks like you get a chance to start over. But I'm going to talk about what the banks have been putting in place to now make it more difficult because of what their churn rate is, or their default rate has been by dealing with CPNs. Okay, so I'll get into that a little bit later on before I take some Q&A. So now, you've had people get the CPNs, trying to establish and get credit. A lot of times you're going to spend anywhere between $100 to maybe $150 to get the CPN. Then you're going to have somebody try to sell you a bunch of trade lines and tell you they're going to help you get an 800 credit score and do all of this stuff. Now, will that happen? Absolutely. But the thing they do not tell you, you can, and just like when I say it's not about your personal credit score, it's about your credit file. King Justice, what's going on? Same thing with your CPN, it's about the profile on the CPN. So when you go to a bank and try to apply for a credit line or a credit card or whatever, and you have that CPN, understand, banks pull what's called a LexisNexis report. And for those who do not know what LexisNexis is, it's in layman's terms, it's like a credit bureau, but it's a housing company that houses all of our information. I like to say it's Big Brother pretty much, meaning every single piece of information on you, LexisNexis has. They have every single known address you've lived at, every job you've worked at, every bank account you've had, anything attached to your name and social security number, it's on LexisNexis. Now, you go out, you buy a CPN, you spend $3,000. I've had people spend as much as $5,000 to build up a perfect CPN profile credit report number. You go to the bank, you apply for something, you got a 700, 800 credit score on the CPN, but guess what? They don't tell you they run a LexisNexis report, and that LexisNexis report is blank. So then what happens, it triggers a red flag through the bank and lets them know this is a CPN. How could you have, 15 years of credit history on your credit report? You say you live in Las Vegas, but you got an address in Philadelphia, you got an address in Florida, you got an address in Milwaukee, you got an address in Atlanta, but that's because you got 5 different trade lines on your credit report from 5 different people from 5 different countries. But they pull the LexisNexis report and the LexisNexis report is blank. Those are things you got to be cautious of. So again, we have to be careful of always trying to cut corners, because the thing I always tell people, for what you spent on that CPN, thinking you were going to get a springboard to $250,000 in credit cards and bank funding and financing, you could have just spent that money and invested and fixed your regular credit. I've seen people spend more on a CPN and have less in debt on their credit, where they could have just paid the debt off if they wanted to, found a credit professional, invested in my book, Credit is King, and fixed their credit themselves, enrolled in our Wealth Mastery course at the J. Morrison Academy. So it's so many other different things. And again, I say this really just to say that because I see this happen a lot, especially within our community. We have to stop trying to figure out a way that we can avoid having any type of, what's the word I'm looking for? any type of responsibility when it comes to acquiring wealth. See, we'll go out and incur debt trying to buy a vehicle to impress people who don't like us anyway, but we scared to put our name on a small business loan that's going to help us build wealth for our family. And so, and I say this, definitely with respect to everyone, because I'm passionate about really trying to educate and level up our community about this information. But I say this really just saying, like, we got to change our mindset about how we do things and how we think about things and how we do and conduct business. And again, so in dealing with CPNs, so I'll put it like this, and I'll go to some Q&A here shortly. CPNs, again, no, you can't go to jail, Al Harris, only if you use it unethically. So CPNs are not illegal, okay? There are legitimate reasons why a person may have to use one, okay? And depending on the circumstances, because essentially, if you have someone who comes to this country and they have to get a temporary number that may not be their social security number that's been issued, or when you are filing taxes and you've been a victim of identity theft, essentially you're getting a secondary social security number to be able to file your taxes. So there are circumstances where having that secondary number is beneficial, but we have to stop trying to use that secondary number to try to defraud the banks, because statistically, if you have not educated yourself on how to maintain your credit, I've seen people ruin their CPN numbers. I've known individuals who've had 5, 6, 7 CPN numbers and still haven't gotten any further in what it is they were trying to accomplish. So again, family, like, let's invest our time and our energy learning about credit, building up our personal credit profile, and putting ourselves in position so we can level up. We all want to be about that life. We want to be about that boss life and being a mogul and all these things. So let's do let's do the necessary things we got to do to put ourselves in position, and again, stop trying to cut corners. So that's one thing. So you can't go to jail for CPNs. They're not illegal. It's just the people who have been utilizing them unethically have made that industry and that space bad. Now, what can CPNs be used for? I tell people, now, some car dealerships will allow you to use a CPN to buy a vehicle, but banks are starting to get more savvy because of the amount of fraud that takes place with car dealerships. And so, a couple different things to be aware of. One, when you have a CPN and you're going to buy a vehicle, you have to have an ID. Now, I've known people who have used and put their face on an ID with their CPN name. Let me give you some advice. What banks have gotten more savvy with is that they're doing DMV searches, and now they're matching up pictures, facial recognition. So all these selfies and Snapchat filter pictures we're taking is facial recognition. They're building up the database. So as we are putting more of ourselves out there, putting more of our information out there, so now these banks have these type of sophisticated software. So with these CPNs, if they flag the file and they feel it's a CPN, they'll do a DMV search, they'll do a facial recognition search, and then they'll say, okay, this is Will Roundtree, but now this is David Smith. Same picture on the same ID, flag the account, fraud. So again, you want to be very careful. Thirdly, you got a CPN number, you're trying to go buy a vehicle, you got to get auto insurance. You got to be careful about those type of things. So just being extremely careful and cautious that you are not putting yourself in a position to potentially, incriminate yourself, because yes, if using a CPN unethically and in a fraudulent manner, you can put yourself in a position to where you can be incarcerated. I have known people that did go to jail for it because they were just burning banks, and being greedy. And so that is one thing. Now, in lieu of why some people get a CPN from a company standpoint when they're trying to get some funding, the second phase of that is they'll go and buy a shelved corporation. For those who don't know what a shelved corporation is, essentially it is you're buying a company that has been already structured or set up through the Secretary of State, and essentially you are taking over that company. And a lot of times the main reason people want to do that is because they want the history. King LeBronte, what's going on, King? King Brandon, what's up? They want to take over the history of that company, because the kind of the secret sauce in business credit is that your company needs to be at least 2 years old. And the 2-year-old protocol is mainly for if you are attempting to try to get business lines of credit. Most banks want your company to be seasoned 2 years because they know the failure rate of most businesses. 80% of small and medium-sized businesses fail within the first 2 years. So most banks want you to be in business at least 2 years before they allow you to apply for a business line of credit. Now, understanding, you also want to be careful buying a shelved corporation. I've seen people spend as much as $30,000 to buy a shelved corporation, to buy the seasoning and the history. But one of the things they don't tell you, when you go and try to use that seasoned company or that shelved company for funding purposes, they don't tell you have to get a new EIN number. Some banks only backdate the company history from the age of the EIN number. So you just spent $30,000 on a shelved company, and guess what? Your EIN number is 2 weeks. Guess how old that company is now? 2 weeks old. So we want to be careful. Again, we got to stop trying to cut corners. All right. Other thing, a lot of times people are selling their companies, or you have a housing company selling shelved companies or shelved corporations as they're called. They don't tell you that the company has back taxes. So when I talk about how some businesses will file bankruptcy because the company maybe has bad taxes or the company is being sued, I've seen people buy a shelf company that has bad debt attached along with a lien towards that company. So again, that's another thing a lot of us haven't looked at, or we haven't even concerned or questioned, because we're just like, man, I bought this shelf company, it's 15 years old, man, I'm about to get $1 million in capital, not knowing that your personal credit still matters, not knowing that you still got to make sure the EIN number matches up, not knowing that the company isn't even bank compliant. Sometimes when the company is that old, they want to see the age of the website. Again, a lot of stuff that they're not telling you. So it's really important, again, that if we are going to try to use these strategies, I'm going to call them, to give ourselves a leg up, because a lot of people normally do these things for funding purposes. And this is what I always say, you do it right or do it twice. And this is the thing that King Tommy was talking about, was that they've squandered so much money in the past trying to figure out these shortcuts. And when he figured out what he invested to do it right the first time, it was a fraction of the cost. And the most important component is that now he's learned the strategies the right way, to where now he can go out and duplicate himself to be able to do everything that we were able to coach him through. And essentially, it's the whole enterprising methodology. Imagine, and this is the thing I'm always trying to share with a lot of entrepreneurs on how we can grow our community in learning about enterprising. It could be people you didn't even grow up with, because 9 times out of 10 people who you grew up with, they can't see your vision. So even though they're seeing you having success, they still don't believe it because they can't envision themselves doing it. So you just have to go out there and do it. And along the way, you will meet other individuals who are going to have a like mind like you, and that's one of the other things I love about business and entrepreneurship, because I've now developed lifelong friends in my business family through my 15-year journey of entrepreneurship. I mean, I'm seeing some of you in the live, individuals like Brandon Lee. When I say this king is a go-getter, and I appreciate him because just of how his work ethic. I love working with people who are ambitious. You know, my brother Paul, my brother Brandon Wigley out in Atlanta. Of course, my brother King J Morrison. I mean, it's just so many people and individuals that I've developed a relationship with that I see more as family, that now we've been able to enterprise together. So you don't have to necessarily start with your close friends you grew up with, because sometimes that doesn't always happen. But from an enterprising standpoint, you get 5 of your business partners, you do the things the right way, and now each one of you built up a company and got $100,000 in capital. You now have $500,000 worth of capital. What could you do having access to $500,000 worth of capital right now? Go back and buy that corner store in your neighborhood. Go back and put a down payment on that $2 million commercial building. Going back and opening up that coffee shop. Going back and opening up the barber shop or the restaurant or a food truck or whatever it is. So we have to stop thinking so minute and understanding that this is so much bigger than us. We're creating legacies. We're changing entire family trajectories. But we got to start with the foundation. And this is what I talked about over the past couple of weeks in dealing with the RBCs. We got to understand and start learning about real estate, business, and credit. As long as you understand those 3 components, you'll always be able to create wealth. But the most foundational component of all 3 of those is the credit. Credit is really just a lifeline and a tool that you need to be able to do all those things. Imagine you being able to fund any single business idea that you have. That's how powerful credit is. But we got to learn the strategies of credit and stop looking at credit from a consumer standpoint, because, you know, I get people that come to me all the time, and I always say this every week, you know, people who look at credit from a consumer standpoint, they get a $10,000 credit card, they're thinking about the vacation they can go on. They're thinking about the shoes or the purse or the belt or the rims or the bottles they're going to be able to buy so they can flash a nanosecond of a moment on their social media or whatever to let people know, hey, this is how I'm living. My network of individuals, we get a $10,000 credit card. We're saying, you know what next home can I go and buy? What next business venture can I go and invest in? What can I use this towards a down payment for that next building? Oh, you know what? We need a minimum $50,000 to buy in. Okay, all right, Paul. All right, Jay. All right, you know, whoever. Let's put this 10 up and let's go and invest. And so we look at credit from a business standpoint as a tool, as a means of leverage, and that's why, you know, we always say leverage everything. You want to leverage everything within your network, whether it's your actual network, whether it's your credit, whether it's your resources, whether it's your, you know, even just within your network. You may not be in position today with the good credit, but this is why you want to get this information, because then how much easier would it be to go to someone you know that has money and say, look, everybody I know with money has the same problem. They're trying to make more money. What if I can show you how to get a 10 to 15% on your money in the next, 9 to 12 months? If they're smart, they're going to say yes. Because sitting in a bank, they're not making no money. Sitting in a shoebox or under their mattress, they're not making any money. And there's very few vehicles where they're going to be able to do so. But that's why I love real estate. And because you've educated yourself over the last 3 to 5 years in real estate investing and how to properly do a flip, on how to properly structure a deal, on how to properly do a wholesale deal, on how to buy and hold and do all of this and do that and the third, you now put yourself in a position where people trust you as an investor. They're putting their money up. You give them, you're able to now go into that deal. You make them a partnering member where you're giving them a return at the end of that term, giving them their ROI, at the end of that term. And now you've created a pipeline of investors while you're working on your credit. So now when you get your credit ready, now you're in a position to multiply your efforts. So again, family, these are all really just strategies. Again, hopefully you guys have learned something a little bit more in depth about the CPNs. Again, they're not illegal. It's about how you use them. Make sure you're using them ethically. And the shelf corporation game. I mean, just do it right the first time. Fix your personal credit. Go in, reach out to us if you don't understand the process of setting up your company and getting it compliant. But I mean, we've had people with brand new companies still get 80, 90, $100,000. I've had people that went and invested all this money in a shelf corporation and got nothing. So it doesn't give you that much more of an advantage as you may think. So hopefully you guys have learned something. I'll go ahead and open it up for some Q&A. Here, let me see what I have on Facebook real quick. King Marcus, appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, we're just trying to drop these jewels, man, because I know a lot of people, I see so many people that's just been bamboozled in that space. And, and I want to try to let people know, like, look, you don't got to do all that, because trust me, you will get jerked going that route. Especially if they're telling you to send them cash. Oh no, we don't take debit credit cards. I need you to wire me or direct deposit this in my bank account. If somebody doesn't take a debit or credit card, that's because if you do get jerked, you can't get your money back. But if you pay with a debit or credit card, guess what? Your bank will always protect your money. So just always remember that anytime you're doing business, especially if you're dabbling in that world. I'll just put it like that. All right, what we got, King Dylan?
What is a CPN?
CPN is a credit privacy number. In layman's terms, it is a secondary number to your social security number. People normally use it trying to build up credit so they can go and get credit cards, buy cars, all this stuff without using their social security number. And I'm here to tell people that game is getting burnt up. Now, I'm not saying you still can't do it. Do it with caution, but it's not as readily simple as people try to sell you on that. And that is because the banks have extremely sophisticated software. Like, did you know some banks now use voice recognition? So, or when you're calling these banks blocked, they have the software so that, of course, they can see your actual phone number, or, you use an address to connect to that CPN. Now it merges to your personal actual credit file. So, I mean, there's so many different things, and these banks have very sophisticated softwares to be able to capture a lot of this information.
Can you use a CPN to buy houses?
No, you can't. You can't at all. Because you got to show tax returns. You can't file tax returns on a CPN, so no.
How can I get a loan when I have more than 3 inquiries on my credit report?
Well, if you have more than 3, first it's going to depend what the rest of your file looks like too. So it's not just about the inquiries, it's about the entire credit profile.
After discharging a Channel 13 BK, first step is clearing the profile of debtority accounts. Is there any problem becoming AAU on a credit card while clearing up profile?
Good question. So they asked, they filed bankruptcy. They know they got to go and clean up their credit. They want to become an authorized user on the credit while they're clearing up their credit. I always say I would not become an authorized user until you're at the end of the credit cleaning process, because I'm starting to see this a lot. When you're on somebody else's card as an authorized user, what if they have to max out that card? If they max it out, guess what? Your score drops. So just adding authorized users doesn't help every single credit situation. It's going to vary depending on what the process is. So you want to be very cautious about that, but there is life after bankruptcy. And you do have to go through the credit repair process. Or I would recommend it, I would say.
What is the first step to repair your credit?
It depends on what your credit issues are. The first step I'm going to say is we got to get out of denial. I know a lot of people are scared to look at their credit. From there, then you want to educate yourself so you know what you're looking at, or get with the credit specialist. Let me see what we got on Facebook. Can you touch on closed accounts and paying or not paying them off? LeBronte, hopefully you went on my YouTube channel. I have an entire 45-minute video that talks about why you don't just want to pay a collection account off without at least validating the debt first. And so I say that I would never just pay a collection until you can get it validated, especially if it's outside the statute of limitations. So you want to be very cautious about that. Let me see. Yeah, and you want to look into the J. Morrison Academy. That is where we have all of these courses. See, I see that you were offering the opportunity to teach people how to open their own credit repair company. Are you still offering that? And also, will you personally be teaching this business and available for mentorship afterwards? Jennifer, yes, we do offer that. We've been helping people establish. We've actually had 2 people that's bought in a franchise from us who have started their own credit repair. We have an entire onboarding process. We set up everything on the back end. We build your website, all that good stuff. So yeah, that is something that we are still offering until, I don't know, I might cap it at the end of 2019. Can't have too much competition out there. But no, it's enough room for everybody to eat, family. And that's the thing I love about this space. It's enough room for everybody to eat.
How long does it take to remove a bankruptcy?
That can depend on a couple different things. Sometimes the credit bureaus can be stubborn. We've had some bankruptcies come off within the first month. We've had some taking as long as 6 months. But I would say even if it was 6 months, it beats 10 years. So sometimes we just have to be patient.
What is the next step for a person with over an 800 credit score?
Hopefully you understand the power of leveraging it. And the other thing I talk to a lot of people, you may not be the entrepreneur, but if you have the good credit, you can be a passive investor. Meaning I have clients who say, you know what, Will, I don't want any part of real estate, business, nothing. But can you help me get some capital and I'll just invest with you guys. You guys just give me a return. So again, it's really just about working smarter and not harder. And those are some of the things that we teach a lot of our one-on-one coaching clients about. Again, leverage everything. Leverage our efforts to help you grow your capital stack, for you to help grow your savings fund, your retirement fund, and all of that. And when I say us, I'm not even just necessarily saying me, but there are other investment vehicles out there for you to be able to do so.
What are some key components in a successful credit repair business?
One, you want to be ethical. You know, there's a lot of unethical individuals in this space, which has kind of given the space a dark cloud. You know, and so you definitely want to make sure you're extremely transparent, but even more, your customer service got to be on point. You got to remember, you're having people spend money with you for something that they're not tangibly getting back right away. Essentially, they're spending money with you and they're not hearing from you for 30 days. That could be scary. So you want to make sure you have a good customer service team. You're extremely transparent. And I talk to some people who they're scared for people to see them on the internet. Like, you got to have all the things to look like a legitimate business, even if you're a one-man operation. You know, when I was first building my company, it was 2 of us, but people swore we were like a 15-person operation. But that's because we did so much stuff from a customer service standpoint to help the clients feel comfortable. So I would say work on your back-end processes and create systems standing for saving yourself time, energy, and money. Because no matter what business you go into, if you don't have systems in place, you'll burn yourself out really quickly.
Should you purchase a trade line 4 months before trying to purchase a home to increase your FICO score? Current FICO score is 711.
So I would say if you were someone I were consulting, why would you want to add a trade line? 711, by adding a trade line, for one, it may not even increase your score, especially if your utilization is already low. Secondly, getting a 780 doesn't give you any better of a rate on your mortgage. Once you're at about a 720, you're going to get the same thing as somebody with an 820. Most mortgage rates are fixed. So, especially if it's your primary residency. So, don't waste your money on getting a trade line.
Can y'all come to Oakland and buy back the block? They're trying to turn Oakland white, home of the Black Panther Party.
Hey, trust me, we trying to buy it up everywhere, family. Definitely. If you do have any good deals, make sure you're sending it over to us. You can send them to me personally, will@jmorrisonacademy.com. Of course, you can send it to our Tulsa Real Estate Fund page as well. So if there's some good deals out there, we definitely look into it and buy it. All right.
How do trade lines work?
Good question. So for those who don't know what a trade line is, you may also hear the terminology authorized users. Essentially, it's a strategy used to help people establish credit. It does not help every single credit situation. So I've seen people spend thousands of dollars on trade lines and get zero results. So you want to be very cautious about that. But what I would say is that for someone who has zero credit, adding a trade line could be beneficial. We utilize trade lines for a lot of our clients who are trying to get funding, mainly to help show high limits or strengthen their age of file. And so it really just depends on the situation and scenario on what your credit file looks like. I can tell you that if you're in the beginning stages of credit repair, I never recommend adding a trade line, especially if you got to buy it, because it's going to fall off in 30 days and then you're going to be mad. So hopefully that answered your question.
Is buying trade lines illegal?
No, they're not at all.
How do you leverage with a good credit score?
I mean, that's a pretty broad question. Essentially, what we do is we help people leverage their credit so that way they can get capital to go and start that business. So think about it from this standpoint. From a entrepreneur and a business owner standpoint, most small businesses can get started or kick started for $5,000 to $10,000. And instead of us going to find some investor to give us $5,000 or $10,000 and gonna want 50 to 60% of your business, I would rather use my credit, go get a couple credit cards for 5 to 10 or 20 to 30,000 and start that business. I own 100%. And so it's just about having a different paradigm shift in your mindset. And then people say, well, aren't you going to be in debt? People go in debt without owning a business. They go in debt to go buy cars. They go in debt to take that vacation they can't afford. So I would rather use creative debt strategies to build wealth, which is what all successful business owners have done. But the component where a lot of people lose is they don't have the proper strategies. And that's the most important component that a lot of people miss or overlook. You got to have strategies, which is why we do these FICO Fridays to help you guys with those type of strategies.
I never filed bankruptcy. Should I file first before repairing my credit?
Well, first, I'm not an attorney. Let me preface that. I normally tell people that I typically don't look at someone or recommend they do bankruptcy unless their wages are being garnished first. And so, I mean, I've seen someone get ready to file bankruptcy for $1,200 because they had a late payment on a credit card. So I would say first explore all your options before you think about filing BK.
If we look to get business funding with you, do we have to wait the 2 years to move forward with business ventures?
No, you can get started right away on your business, you know.
Do CPNs work if it is actually a legit CPN?
Well, all CPNs start off legit. They don't work the way they're being sold to people. Let me put it that way. Can they still work? Yes, but the way it's being sold, you're not going to walk in the bank and get $500,000 of credit on a CPN. It's as readily, easily as people are selling it to you. So that's what I'll say about that.
After getting funded, how do we liquidate?
It's a strategy, liquidating, essentially where you're using merchant accounts to be able to pull the capital off cards. Almost all seasoned real estate investors have been doing that forever. It's the easiest and the cheapest money you'll be able to get. And so it's just a liquidation strategy that is used to be able to actually, and not every single scenario you have to do that. That's primarily used for individuals who are real estate investors. And so that's what that strategy has been used for. Somebody on Facebook asks, are inquiries easy to get removed or old addresses? Inquiries, when you know what you are doing, they can be. I can tell you that most people that offer inquiry removal have very little to no success. And the few companies out there that can do it usually can only get them removed from 1, maybe 2 credit bureaus. I can say this confidently, and I'm not sure if anybody is on any of the chats on Facebook, Instagram. If you use our services and you want to co-sign this, you can. We are definitely one of the few that's been successfully able to get inquiries removed from all 3 credit bureaus. And I'll stand on that any day of the week.
What is the easier and most cost-efficient way to monitor and build your business credit profile on D&B?
Good question. So the easiest way to monitor your business credit, nav.com, and that's nav.com. As far as building it, it depends on what your end goal is and what you're trying to do. The one thing I do tell a lot of people, if you're trying to get cash related business lines and cards, investing a lot of money trying to build up your paydex is a waste of money because most banks don't go off a paydex score. So when people tell me they have an 80 paydex but they haven't gotten any money from the bank, that's because the bank doesn't look at a paydex. They only use DMB for the purpose to validate that you're a legitimate company, because DMB has a certain verification and authentication process they go through to validate that you're an individual. And so this is why I tell people, don't waste your money buying a credit builder program with DMB, because they're going to tell you, oh, your credit file will be incomplete. That's completely BS. And the companies that are selling people $4,000 or $5,000 to build up their DMB and all this stuff, yeah, you would be able to get credit without using your social, but it's cards that have zero cash value, meaning you'll get a bunch of gas cards and different things like that. Home Depot, definitely no knock against that route, because as a trucking company, you need that service. But if I'm a real estate investor, it's not beneficial for me. If I'm I want to leverage my credit to get some cards because I want to invest in the market, that's not beneficial for me to get a bunch of gas cards. So it really just depends on what your situation and scenario is.
Does the balance on a business card affect your FICO score?
It doesn't affect your personal FICO score, but it could affect your lending and borrowing. So a lot of times people say, oh, I can max out my business credit, but in not knowing that some banks do look at your utilization on your business cards and your business lines. So again, you got to be careful where you're getting your information from, because there's a lot of myths in relation to business credit. Someone asked, can you remove a late payment off your business credit? The late payments on business credit reports are a little more difficult, but it's easier to call them, and they usually are a little bit more, they're not as apprehensive to remove them, because they understand as business owners, things do slip through the crack. It's actually harder to get a late payment removed on a personal account or a personal credit line versus a business. So, but then again, I always say a late payment is not the end of the world, even on a business. And it also depends on the type of account it is as well.
Do you guys recommend or have a relationship with any Northern California real estate agents?
Yes, we do. Make sure you reach out to us. NARAB, we work with a lot of people, National Black Realtors Association, really good friend of mine, King Malik out in LA. So yeah, we have some really good realtors we can connect you with out in California. I'm not sure if you said Southern or Northern California, so I apologize. What they said? Northern. Yes, I do have somebody in Northern Cali as well, so you can reach out to me and we can link you with them.
Does credit repair really work?
I can tell you that I'm a walking billboard. Yes, it does. I'm a living testimony.
Where can I find information to buy a property with tax liens?
What's the queen name out of Atlanta? Send me a message and I'll link you with Queen Chantel, who is the tax lien queen out of Atlanta, originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but she's like the guru when it comes to buying properties and dealing with tax liens, and I want to connect you with her.
What should your utilization be to increase your credit score?
Well, you need to be at 30% or less, and the further below 30%, the stronger your scores will be.
Is it really a good idea to borrow money from your credit card to buy a house when the interest is so high? Good
question. I can tell you that's the only way I've ever purchased real estate. Myself and my team, we have going on 20 doors, and we've never spent a dime of our own money. The interest is irrelevant. You just don't have the proper strategies, because it's the cheapest money you will get. And understand, interest on a credit line is only impacting you if you're only making minimum payments for 30 years. So you can go and swipe a credit card for $100. If you're only making a minimum payment, you'll pay that $100 for 10 years. So one, do you understand how to calculate a cap rate? Do you understand how to factor in your carrying costs? All those things matter when you're calculating whether that deal makes sense or not. So I will always use the bank's money to buy real estate. I don't care how much money I would have in the bank. I would always use my credit lines because it's their money. So.
Who do you recommend a tax strategies in Atlanta, Georgia?
One king I deal with, King Brian from Rich Boy Investments. He's a tax specialist and strategist we refer some people to, who's in Atlanta. He actually has offices all over the world. Every week I look up, he's somewhere else in the world. So, but you can send me a message and I'll link you with someone.
What is the first step to build a foundation as a real estate investor?
One is educate yourself about investing. The thing I always tell people is that real estate investing is really just about strategies. And so understanding that, one, you got to know the market. Every single market is different. Just like I get people all the time that say, oh man, I would love to invest in Vegas. Well, my strategy, Vegas is not a market that I would invest in. So, and when you say why, a seasoned investor would understand. There's different strategies for different markets. So what I would say is definitely just educate yourself. Don't just buy real estate to buy it. I can tell you there's a very high percentage of individuals that buy real estate that can't even tell you how to calculate an ROI. That's something I would never recommend. And take your time. Real estate is not going anywhere. And a lot of times people who've had a bad taste in their mouth about real estate investing, that's because they didn't purchase the proper way. Again, there's certain formulas and calculations on how you want to calculate whether you're even going to make any money to determine whether you should buy a property or not. And then it depends on if you're trying to buy and hold, fix and flip, if you want to be a wholesaler, if you're going to be a passive investor, if you're going to be a developer, if you're going to be a builder. I mean, there's so many different scenarios and parameters. So I'll take one more question. We got about 2 minutes left.
If I need to add an AU due to my credit history not being old enough once I add an AU, would that reflect on the Privacy Guard website? It'll
help, but it is going to be dependent on the age of it and what your current age is. So you definitely want to be, you want to definitely make sure you do your due diligence in making sure that that makes sense at that time for what it is your end goal you're trying to do. So that's it, family. Today's FICO Friday. I appreciate Facebook, y'all rocking out with me. Instagram, Mr. Will Roundtree page, Jay Morrison page. Make sure you go and follow me on YouTube at Mr. Will Roundtree. Make sure you go and pick up the book, Credit is King, which is also now an Audible version. Make sure you go and pick up my wife's book, Note to Self, at ggroundtree.com. Shameless plug for my wife. Of course, shameless plug for my book. I will see you guys next Friday. The Jay Morrison family, I think we will be going back on tour soon, so make sure you check your local calendars. If you're in the Newark, New Jersey area, make sure you go and register. My brother, King Jay, will be doing a 4-hour mastermind event. You can go to the Jay Morrison Academy website to our events page and get more information about that event. It probably is getting close to sold out. There is also a live stream, so make sure you go and register for that. Again, family, I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all next week. And till then, I will holler at y'all. Peace.